Coming up on our newscast tonight. The nation's benchmark index closes below the 2,000 mark on the second day of the new year, reaching the lowest level in over 2 years. This comes as investor confidence waned due to concerns of a slowing global economy. According to South Korea's intel agency, a senior North Korean diplomat is seeking asylum in Italy. Cho Sung-gil, the chargé d'affaires of the regime's embassy in Rome, and his family are reportedly under the protection of the Italian government. A Chinese probe becomes the first spacecraft to land on the far side of the moon. Chang'e 4 is now ready to take detailed measurements of the moon's terrain and mineral composition. NEWSCENTER begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. Let's begin with some stock market action. The KOSPI closed below the psychologically important 2,000 mark on Thursday as investor confidence waned due to concerns of a slowing global economy. According to the Korea Stock Exchange, the nation's benchmark index fell by more than 0.8% from the previous day to close at 1993, the lowest level in more than 2 years. Institutions sold nearly $150 million worth of KOSPI shares in a single day. The tech-heavy KOSDAQ also dropped by nearly 1.9% to close at 657. A senior North Korean diplomat who was working for Pyongyang's embassy in Italy is reportedly seeking asylum and is under protection of the Italian authorities. Major reasons for this decision is believed to be children's education matters, similar to why a former minister at the North's embassy in London, Tae Young-ho, defected to South Korea back in 2016. Oh Jung-hee gets us up to speed with the developments.
A senior North Korean diplomat in Italy disappeared from the mission last year and is reportedly seeking asylum. On Thursday, South Korean newspaper 중앙일보 reported, citing diplomatic sources, that Cho Sung-gil, the chargé d'affaires of the North's embassy in Rome, applied for personal security protection from the Italian government early December. He and his family are currently under the protection of Italian authorities. Personal security protection is a diplomatic procedure aimed to prevent one being repatriated while seeking asylum in a third country. Throughout the day, the South Korean government declined to confirm the matter, saying they have no information regarding the report. But the nation's intelligence agency briefed lawmakers on the situation on Thursday. Accordingly, lawmakers said that Cho disappeared with his wife from embassy grounds in early November last year before he was due to finish his term later that month. It is not yet clear whether Cho is hoping to defect to South Korea. Seoul's intelligence agency told lawmakers that there has been no attempt to contact the government by Cho, while his whereabouts are yet to be confirmed. Cho was dispatched to Italy in May 2015 and started to run the North Korean mission there in October 2017 as the Italian government expelled the North's ambassador Moon Jung-nam after Pyongyang's 6th nuclear test. It's believed that Cho decided to seek asylum after he was ordered to return home. A major reason is deemed to be the education of his children. There have been 2 senior North Korean diplomats who sought asylum in a third country. A former minister at the North's embassy in London, Tae Young-ho, defected to South Korea in 2016. And back in 1997, former North Korean ambassador to Egypt, Jang Seung-gil, defected to the U.S. with his family and his brother, who served as Pyongyang's trade representative in Paris. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, with Kim Jong-un's New Year's address and his letter to President Donald Trump, a second summit between North Korea and the U.S. doesn't appear so far away. It's a positive sign amid months of stalled nuclear negotiations. Our Park Hee-jun zooms in on where things could be headed from here on.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump both say they are ready for a second summit.
나는 앞으로도 언제든 또다시 미국 대통령과 마주 앉을 준비가 되어 있으며 반드시 국제사회가 환영하는 결과를 만들기 위해 노력할 것입니다.
We had our meeting 6 months ago in Singapore. We'll probably now have another meeting. He'd like to meet. I like to meet.
The U.S. has been hoping to hold the second Kim-Chun meeting early this year. And with the two leaders having set the stage for a second summit, there is a higher possibility of it actually happening. But it depends largely on how flexible Washington is willing to be over its past demands. Because in Kim's New Year's speech, he made it clear that he wants the nuclear negotiations to center on limiting North Korea's future nuclear capabilities, not its existing nuclear weapons.
That North Korea is not interested in talking about its nuclear weapons. One bright side of the New Year's address is that it might be easier for them to start the negotiation, focusing more on the future capabilities, such as freezing the capabilities and facilities of North Korea. So maybe President Trump and the Chairman Kim might be able to reach an interim agreement before FFBD, which is about freezing and limiting the current capability of North Korea's nuclear weapons.
That will determine whether or not there will be high-level or working-level talks between the two sides that could lead to a second summit. And even when that's settled, there's still the question of lifting sanctions on the North. It's a long road ahead before the two leaders actually meet face-to-face, but experts say it's a positive turn that could lead to progress in these style negotiations. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's National Security Council believes 2019 will be critical to solving the denuclearization issue and establishing peace on the peninsula. Chaired by National Security Advisor Chung Yu-young, during the meeting, the members reviewed the security situation in the region and said that Seoul needs to take the lead this year in improving relations between the Koreas and the U.S. On the dispute between Seoul and Tokyo over a Japanese patrol plane's recent low-altitude flight over a Korean naval ship, the NSC vowed to take steps, if needed, against what could be a serious violation of safety protocols or even a threat from the Japanese plane. Seoul expressed deep regrets over how Tokyo continues to make inappropriate comments on the nation's Supreme Court's ruling that Japanese firms must compensate South Koreans for forced labor during World War II. A senior official at Seoul's foreign ministry told reporters Thursday that while Japan's criticism is very undiplomatic, Seoul still seeks to move forward with Japan in the new year and heal the wounds of the victims. This comes as Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on January 1st criticized the court's ruling while speaking to reporters. Meanwhile, a number of plaintiffs on Wednesday applied for a seizure of the Japanese firm's shares within the country. To this, the South Korean official said the government will come up with an overall response after an in-depth discussion with the relevant ministries and experts. The government has also strengthened measures to prevent leak of new industrial technology to foreign firms. At a ministerial meeting today, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said it will require all local companies possessing crucial technology to report to authorities when merging with or acquiring foreign companies. It will also fine tech leakers up to 3 times the amount of damages and confiscate any economic gains that were amassed through such activities. According to the Trade Ministry, more than 20 cases of tech leaks, including those related to the country's core industries like semiconductors, have been reported almost every year. The South Korean government has announced a set of comprehensive measures to eradicate acts of technology leakage, specifically focusing on the nation's defense industry. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon presided over this year's very first weekly ministerial meeting earlier Thursday, announcing the government's comprehensive measures to protect the nation's key industries from risks of technology leakage. The meeting was attended by the heads of the Defense, Justice, and Trade Ministries and the head of the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, along with other key officials. Prime Minister Lee stressed that South Korea needs stronger measures to protect its industrial technology, especially in the defense sector, which is now estimated to be in the top 9 in the world. After closely consulting with the related agencies and ministries, the nation's defense ministry came out with a package of measures. First, the ministry will strengthen punitive measures against any attempts to leak arms technology. In addition to existing criminal procedures for tech leakage, local defense firms could lose their entitlement as officially designated defense firms. Second, the Defense Ministry will strengthen investigations into the nation's defense firms while providing various incentives to encourage voluntary efforts to prevent tech leakage. The ministry will strengthen meetings, especially with intelligence agencies, to swiftly respond to issues and prevent further damage. Lastly, the ministry will update the nation's guidelines for protecting defense technology to reflect the rapid development of the latest technology and raise general awareness about the risks of technology leakage. South Korea's Vice Minister of National Defense, Ho Ju-seok, emphasized that defense industries form a key part of a nation's combat capabilities. Thus, the goal is to protect the nation's defense industries and maintain export competitiveness, not to increase regulations for defense firms. 박지원, Arirang News.
Foreign direct investment pledged to South Korea reached an all-time high in 2018. The Trade Ministry attributes the record amount to reduced geopolitical risks linked to Pyongyang, as well as Seoul's strong economy. Ko Ryuni help us look beyond the digits.
South Korea's Trade Ministry says the amount of foreign direct investment pledged last year came to some $26.9 billion, up 17.2% compared to the previous year. It means FDI pledges to South Korea have now surpassed the $20 billion mark for 4 consecutive years. Actual investment by foreign companies in 2018 reached around $16.4 billion, up more than 20% on year. This trend was mainly due to reduced geopolitical risk in the region. The Trade Ministry says the summits between the leaders of the two Koreas and North Korea and the U.S. reduced such risks and encouraged overseas companies to pledge investment and seek partnerships with South Korean firms. Another reason was the fundamental strength of the local economy. With stable economic conditions, investors' confidence received a boost. For instance, in December, South Korea became just the 7th country in the world to surpass $600 billion in annual exports. Other countries on the list include the U.S. and China. Also, many foreign companies believe South Korea has a high capacity for innovation. According to the 2018 Bloomberg Innovation Index, South Korea grabbed the top spot for the 5th year in a row. This means South Korea is leading in research and development expenditure and building high-tech public companies. By sector, foreign direct investment in the semiconductor, machineries, and petrochemical industries increased steadily. The ministry added that rising interest in industries related to the 4th Industrial Revolution, such as bio and e-commerce, contributed to the hike. By country or region, the lion's share of FDI pledges came from the European Union, which rose by almost 27% compared to the previous year. Investment from China increased more than 200%, marking its own record high. Ko Ryuni, Arirang News.
Turning to the Moon Jae-in administration's efforts to revitalize the economy, the presidential chief of staff for economic policy met with members of the country's top conglomerates, hoping to join forces and turn things around. The South Korean leader himself is set to sit down for talks with this group as well. Shin Se-min has the full story.
President Moon Jae-in will be meeting this month with the nation's business leaders, including the heads of big conglomerates and the owners of small and medium-sized enterprises. The first, with SME owners and the self-employed, is scheduled for January 7th, and the second, with the heads of conglomerates, is expected to be held sometime in the middle of the month. The presidential spokesperson says the purpose of the meetings is to revitalize economic growth, to give companies a foundation for investment, and to draw positive outcomes from policies. On top of the president's own meetings, others at the presidential office are also keeping in close touch with the country's biggest business groups. On Thursday, the presidential chief of staff for economic policy, Kim Soo-hyun, held a closed-door meeting with senior executives from the country's top conglomerates, following up on a meeting late last month between the deputy advisory panel and executives from the business groups including Samsung, LG, and SK. The so-called chaebol, or family-run conglomerates, have massive influence in the market, which will be important in achieving the policy outcomes the president has promised for the new year.
2019년은 정책의 성과들을 국민들께서 삶 속에서 확실히 체감할 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다. 기업이 투자에 적극적으로 나설 수 있도록 정부가 지원하겠습니다.
Despite the administration lending business an ear, there are still calls for concrete action to come out of these meetings, with some suggesting corporate tax cuts. 신세민, Arirang News.
The country's leading figures in economy and finance got together for an annual event. As a new year begins, policymakers put their heads together and pitch their thoughts on the path forward. Kim Hye-sung shares with us what was discussed.
Innovation and risk management in the finance sector. These are the key words that Korea's key economic policymakers pointed to at a New Year gathering with 1,100 leaders from the finance industry, including banks and insurance companies. Minister of Economy and Finance Hong Nam-gi emphasized the role of Korea's banks in supporting startups to help boost innovation. The chairman of the Financial Services Commission, Choi Jong-gu, said he'll help accelerate innovation in the financial sector through deregulation. And he added that through funding, he'll help boost the competitiveness of Korea's key manufacturing industries. The chief of the Korea Federation of Banks, Kim Tae-young, called for Korean banks to go digital and go global to lead the fourth industrial revolution. But some other policymakers put more emphasis on risk management. Both the Bank of Korea Chief Lee Ju-yeol and Financial Supervisory Service Chief Yoon Seok-kun said Korea faces challenges like growing household debt, slowing global economy, and the U.S.-China trade war. Banks, they said, need to manage such risks preemptively, enhance their fiscal soundness, and distribute resources effectively and productively. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon wished business circles the best year to come and vowed to do his utmost to help out. At a New Year celebratory event on Thursday, the PM marked the nation reaching the $30,000 mark in per capita income and the population exceeding 50 million people, making South Korea the 7th country to achieve such feat last year. The Prime Minister praised business representatives for enduring recent uncertainties in and out of the nation, such as the U.S.-China trade dispute throughout 2018. The PM also vowed to take preemptive steps to ease tensions, encourage investment, support new industries to prosper, and continue deregulation efforts. The Chinese probe makes history by landing on the far side of the moon. The Chang'e 4's mission was launched in early December. The spacecraft took 3 days to reach the moon and spent the last few weeks orbiting in preparation to touch down on the von Karman crater. The far side of the moon has been mapped before, but Chang'e 4 is the first spacecraft to touch down there. The landing on Thursday morning comes about 2 years after the successful Chang'e 3 mission, the first soft landing on the moon since 1976. Chang'e 4's mission, taking detailed measurement of the moon's terrain and mineral composition. According to a recent survey, 1 in 5 elderly South Koreans is socially inactive. Such groups may be more prone to isolation and loneliness. In response, the government announced a blueprint that centers on providing more jobs for senior citizens this year. Won Jung-hwan sheds light on these new measures.
Last year, South Koreans 65 and older accounted for more than 14% of the country's total population. And by 2025, that could rise to 20%. The fast-growing number of senior citizens poses a range of social issues, so the government is looking to provide more jobs for them. The Ministry of Health and Welfare said Thursday that it plans to create 610,000 jobs for seniors this year, 100,000 more than last year. It said it will try to help each senior citizen find a decent position through a customized service with monthly pay ranging between around $88 and $1,200, depending on the position. But with demand for jobs high among seniors, the ministry recommended that they apply for the program as soon as possible because it expects the hiring period will end much more quickly than last year. The government has already been working to provide more income to the elderly and to raise their living standards, but the working system will bring them even more benefits. The Welfare Ministry explained that by giving them jobs, elderly people who are socially isolated will be at less risk of mental health issues such as loneliness, which has been a major cause of suicide among older people. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
The percentage of low-paid workers in Korea kept going up for 3 consecutive years. But 2018 has been a turning point. That number declined. Minimum wage hike may have contributed to this change. Here's Seoul with a deeper analysis.
According to the Korean Employment Information Service, the percentage of workers in Korea making what is considered low paid dropped last year to 18%, down 5.8 percentage points from the year before. Low-wage workers, according to the government, are those who earn less than 2/3 of the median hourly wage. Last year, the median wage was around $10, so they're making around $6.70 or less. It was the first time less than 20% of workers were low-paid in 10 years. The report pointed to factors that helped lower the ratio, including an increase in the legally set minimum wage and levels of education. Of people with a bachelor's degree or higher, only 5.6% had a low-paid job, but among those with high school diploma or lower, the figure was 29.4%. This indicates that those with less educational attainment likely benefited more from the Moon administration's wage hikes. Seoul, Arirang News.
South Korea's economic growth might have been slow last year, but local automakers managed to increase sales slightly from the year before by 0.5%. Sales reports from Hyundai, Kia, GM Korea, Sangyong, and Renault Samsung Motors show the 5 automakers sold a total of 8.23 million vehicles last year, an on-year increase of 40,000. About 8% of those vehicles were exports, which offset a fall in sales domestically. The best-selling model in South Korea last year was Hyundai's Grandeur at 110,000 units. The local food industry grew 2.3% in 2018 with sales of more than $80 billion. According to the Korea Rural Economic Institute report, processed grain products, animal feed, and manufactured food products led the industry's growth. $5.4 billion of food was exported in the first 9 months of the year, while imports for the same period went up 6% to nearly $10.9 billion. Instant meals garnered greater popularity in Korea, while beverages saw increased demand overseas, particularly in Asian markets. Time to turn to Michelle Bach for the updates you need. Michelle, it's still very cold at night, but when the sun is up, the weather has gotten a lot more bearable.
Yes, Daniel, and as of today, the nation has been relieved from freezing conditions, and tomorrow the highs will be about 2 to 3 degrees higher thanks to the warm westerly wind. Now, neighboring capitals such as Beijing and Tokyo will be mild too. And meanwhile, a dry spell continues to be cause of concern in the nation, especially over in the east, where the dry weather warnings have been in effect almost a month now. And as of tomorrow, it's going to get windier, so the risk of fire is higher. And as such, do take necessary precautions and stay alert. And the morning lows are still below freezing point for some parts, and including Seoul, which begins the day at -6 degrees Celsius, while Chuncheon falls way down to -11 degrees. And then we can expect some dust to accumulate tomorrow, with Seoul rising up to 4 degrees Celsius, while Busan peaks into the low teens, and Jeju expects light drizzles after some clouds. Now, this slightly milder weather is expected to continue for now, but dry conditions and the fine dust will trouble us as well. So please stay updated with the weather forecast. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we could pack into tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Thank you for watching. Good day or good night, depending on your time zone.